Joseph Curry here, and welcome to my storybook. Today, this is the part 18 in this book called TD Dates Before You Do. Today, we begin on chapter 17, Before You Fight. And that was the last part of this chapter. So today, on part 18 in this book called Before You Take Flight, on chapter 18. Chapter 18, Before You Take Flight. May your love soar on the wings of a dove in flight. As, as we saw in the polar chapter, when facing with a crisis, casting the thought, or conflict, our bodies naturally react with the fight or flight instead, in order to keep us alive, just as there is a time to fight and a time to make peace. There is a time to take flight and a time to commit to staying in the midst of the conflict. Indeed, sometimes we must dig in and fight. Although if that is our natural senses or an automatic posture, then we will miss on the gifts God sends our way. Similarly, if we are always running away from problems, then we will never mature into the adult men and women that we're designed to be. And if we keep facing toxic relationship, relationships and abuse situations, then we haven't learned to spread our wings and fly to greener pastures. Military necessitates that we know how to discount and decide when to run and when to roll up our sleeves and get down to the business and of figuring out how to make something work. In our proper in our preliminary relationships, it can be too easy to run from the other person for innumerable reasons. Some people run when things are going too well. They're terrified to taste intentionally because they have been starving for it for so long that they feel it won't last. There are emotional analysts who has thrived for so long that they cannot bear to indulge in a banquet of love. Other people don't want to face the hard work of loving someone the going gets when the going gets tough. As long as the romantic and affection lasts, they're fine. But as soon as communications breaks down or trust fractures, they'll, then they're out the door. They make flight into an art form, finding more than 50 ways to leave their lover. It seems like a game of conquest or impossible power. If they can lead their postal gravity to succeed someone into a bed, then they're ready to spin onto the next galaxy, leaving a blazing trail of failing commitments like shooting stars behind them. Just not that into It's tempting to assess that men tend to run from commitments in relationships more than women. And perhaps there's some truth to this. Women often to come to me and my wife for counseling after their last serious relationship has ended with the object of her affection going AWOL. Many times these ladies maintain that there were no educational poor to his Edward's retreat. However, upon discussing the details of how they interacted, it often seems clear that he just wasn't that into her. This catchphrase, long spoken by many of us, emotions from an episode of Sex in the City painted by widows Graham Bernhardt and Liz Tuscola. Tuscola. They went, they went on to write a book at the same time in which they describe the bell warning signs of invalidness, merely an unwillingness to commit. Many times the women they choose are so desperate for romance that they bounce blind to his relationships to go the distance. When he's consistently late, breaks dates at the last minute, doesn't call when he tells you he will, or seems motivated to spend time in your presence, then he's definitely not that into you. Ladies, you're worth more in time and attention than these gentlemen are willing to pay. As soon as you discover that he's not really into you, decide to act, waste no time, and fly away. These men can be on again, off again, top who bar who however, but never land. You should take flight from such men and women and move on to others who want to engage in a mature adult relationship. As the Bible reminds us, it's better to be hot or cold than to be lukewarm. Too often they need to these tendencies relationships set up expectations without the ability to choose the deal. It's like being in the airport watching the fly off together or a 1 minute vacation. You fill the time together waiting in the airport lounge, enjoying a drink or a bite to eat, looking at magazines at the newsstands, shopping, and killing time. It's pleasant and enjoyable, but not the reason you're both there at the airport. You're there to travel to your ultimate destination of a committed relationship. I cannot tell you how many women and even some men find themselves investigating whose amount of time in relationships that they little realize goes nowhere. In this rapid, fast-paced world in which we live, patience isn't something in high supply. Most of us are unwilling to spend years at the richest well of life. We go to the airport to travel, and when there are nice places to borrow, we ultimately want to get off the ground and go somewhere. When what was meant to be a temporary establishment becomes its own destination, then something is wrong. When people travel to the airport and spend days after day browsing the shops and rather than boarding of the plane, there's a real problem. Let's talk about the problems that keeps us in the gateway mode, but not but will not allow us to go fully into commitment and competence and completion. More times than not, I have found that when the plane never gets off the ground, it generally indicates that either there is total distress, he's just not there in that into you, or involvement or commitment out of fear of failure. These window shoppers can never seemingly find their way to the checkout line. They are afraid they will have regret. So rather than take a risk, they make no commitments at all. These are men and some women who really and skeptically care for the other person, but lack the relationship skills and posture humanitarian to fully committed. Most of us have neither the time nor the skill to consider the unwilling partner through the process to take a place of commitment. But this is actually what they need. Low decision boils down to a few cultural questions. Is he into you or not? If he's not, then waste no time more or in emotional energy trying to get water from a dry well. He is and just find it difficult to commit, then you must ask him if he's willing to walk through his issues. And if he's in, and if he is, then you are willing to wait for him. Lord answers to these questions can provide you with a relational GPS if you will let them. Flight risk. Some relationships require you to take a stand and fight for its improvement. If you are well past the game playing stage and you know that there is love between you, then you will need to dig in and work through the conflicts. In the 60s, many young people wore T-shirts declaring, "I am not, I am not lover." I'm T-shirts declaring, "I'm a lover, not a follower." I'm at the time, it made great sense. But today I realize that lovers must also be fathers. You have to fight to love. You have to fight not to lose your ability to love. Many people must fight through the grief of telomere, Lord experiences to open their bruises heart again. They get so hurt that they ultimately want at the first sign of another serious relationship. They have to learn to cancel their tendency towards flight. I remember vividly as I rehabbing from back surgery that the pain of healing was incredibly intense. I am a fighter by nature and I wanted to see improvement. I had to learn to fight with more stubbornness than stumble, tenseness, but also understand the rest and sleep were part of my fight. I had to learn that avoiding the pain and staying in the bed might feel better, but wasn't fusion my goal or the intention the drilling or a bodily motion. Standing, walking, running, skipping, dancing. Real lovers must fight off bombs of depression and the ever-luminous personality to become credible and bitter. If they're scrambling to the pain of a broken heart, they become a walking catalyst, enslaving to a rich understanding for life, love, and longing. A person who gives up on love becomes no more than a body waiting to be built. That I see all around me and growing senselessly and indefinitely. People today seem ready to draw in the tower of life, on love, and on each other. If our relationship doesn't happen quickly and convincingly, then we are off to the next flight, changing our plans without understanding that people who make love walk at love, like fugitives from love. These flight risks people consistently or unconsensually slip into the possible state of avoidance and seek the conveniences rather than the complexes of walking through the issues and seeing the relationship through. The death of personal or madness is a great loss, and the war to destroy all options drags and the war and to destroy all options drags on for many of us who face the dismissal of fortune or disappointment, and the black scientist that reminds us of the low success rates of ongoing pessimism and content and contentment. Those who try again must defeat the fears and emotional unbandment and sustain the lifeblood of passing and their coagulating entities. Those who do not try again seek the comfort of the environment and only become comfortable by easing the pain. They will not risk being hurt again, and that fear of pain causes them to lose the mo- mobility and sensitivity that comes from opening your heart. cleaning out the debris and harboring with a one-wounded soul. I remember one morning sitting on the side of the brown bed, slumping over on my walker with tears in my eyes and thinking it hurts too much to get well. I am tired of fighting and I want to quit. But then I thought how foolish it would be to allow the pain to win. So I pulled my aching body up and finally stayed up and forced myself to walk. Sometimes you have to walk with the pain of life until you can walk away from it. Just like you. Where did we get this frightening environment? To me, it is quite clear that the second passenger or rail on a plane will only allow the outside winds to blow in. In fact, if that happens, it will ingo their flight because the outside is getting in. Likewise, what is happening in our private world is not linking into our interpersonal activities. We may not we may not get more than a person's personality until we find a way to connect more effectively publicly. Consider with me the socialized environment that spawns such indefinitely as we have today. The security of environments has taken a horrible toll on more than our interpersonal relationships. In our culture today, it has become too easy to take flight for the individuals in our lives who cherish us without difference because we feel threatened or intimidated by those who are not just like us. We run away instead of trying to learn and grow from each other. How many times do we see it happen at a social event that the main cursor in one section, taking sports and telling jokes, or the women gathering in another to discuss gender and fashion? I realize in more progressive eras of winners, new exclusionary cultures exist, and more diverse social skills are adopted. Yet, in far too many cases, we are still psychologically segregationists. Recently, I attended a top magazine's gala in New York, filled with bright, successful, and charismatic people. The black tie event features icons for both the business and entertainment worlds. My table was abuzz with conversation, and all was well until they find out I was a minister. Now I was the only black person at the table, but being black was a non-issue here. But when they find out I was Calgary, it seems that I had an intermittent grow at all. You would have thought I was, and terrors were a bond in my testimony. I had to fight off an outright confrontation just because I'm different from my new galoshes and adolescent friends who sat around the table with me. In short, I was different. And it's not just one group, such as liberals or conversationalists. It's truly those who are different. We're all prone to such excruciating cultures. I feel myself more motivated than a consensually or literally, but all groups struggling to get out of a box of similar ideals and seek to understand others. One point is that we live in a world that doesn't teach us to respect differences or learn each other's perspective. We live in a world that avoids diversity by tribally migrating into comfort zones and surrounding ourselves with people who fit. I must frequently see this playing out potentially every commit, every soundbite, each and every action or interaction becomes vulnerable for the racial, gardener, or sexual preferences tug of war. We have come dangerously close to the age of losing our ability to dialogue, to listen, and to remain open minded. It is no accident that our personal lives show the innocent negation. It is my way or the highway personality because our scouting has given it up on understanding differences and seeking common ground. My friends, the United States of America has trouble uniting like never before. Too often we cannot disagree without being disagreed. We have gotten to the point that we write blogs and articles, spread marketing and have trust without any remorse. If we want to know how people really feel with what they write when they can remain anonymous, it may be one nation, but we have many differences that we have to manage, and people shows that we have changing trends on how we accomplish this feat. The overreacting the overreaction problem is that we don't spend enough time with people who are different from us. Often what we find out is that our views may be different, but people aren't really that different from each other at all. When you only interacting with people who look like you and think like you have no checks and balance to avoid extreme and to provide balanced wisdom. If you only have friends who vote like you or worship like you have no sense of the world, only the world. After all, my friends, Hensley is often true that lost its balance. If we are going to raise respect from the dead, we must go to the graveyard and admit where we lost it. Jesus, when Jesus, when he was about to raise Lazarus from the dead, asked Mary to show him where he laid him down. Maybe one of the places we laid down where we started living in hanging on these clubs again and left the town square for the South Suburb class and neighborhoods. There was a time when we met more frequently with those who were different from us in schools, on jobs, in our churches. We were forced to look for points of unity rather than to sink into the all too easily state of divisiveness. It is easy to see how we are different, but you have to be a real lover of people to look deeper for what unites us. The powerhouse is trying hard to draw in exclusively circles and bring people together rather than to that. Lines that divide us into our size and perspectives. For example, our choices is building a community called Capella Park featuring an estimated 1,200 homes upon competition. These are not lower income houses but mixed incomes because it is a fact that when different types of people live together, they do better and learn from each other. Low income neighborhoods that were intention often ended up becoming slums because cross pollination is critical to development and advancement. This is a far bigger principle than just an uncommon one. We are losing economically and spiritually and politically simply by polarization. Polarization. Self-disintegrated threatens our development today. You might have seen the surprising commercial about global warming that featured Rivera Pat Robinson and Rivera and Reverend Al Sharpton. In it, the two are mainly conversing about the dangers of global warming in the sense that we must find common ground to overcome it. How amazing is that? Apparently, they know that saving the planet is more important than saving faces or being right. Maybe they know that what unites us should be more importantly than what divides us. But learn to fight or flight. Our 1 minute relationships as well require that we overcome our difference. The art of relationships requires that a man who is very different from his woman find common ground with her and vice versa. I don't mean the opposite molecular difference alone. No, it isn't that simple. The differences run much deeper than externals. We tend to become attraction to people who are different from us. The environment often marries are in trouble. The sponsor person is attracted to the always scarcer person. Have you noticed how often the quiet dramas the person bears that sportsman apparently indivisible? The spindle marriage, the saying, deceiver, the flamboyant person ends up married to the quiet indivisible. However, herein lies the rub. Often what attracted us to the person in the first place later disgusts us. Why does she want to stay in all the time when I want to go out? Why is he talking all the time when I need place and quiet? I believe that we were meant to balance each other by attracting people whose strengths may be our wickedness. Together, as a result of our difference in unity, unity, destruction, destructionity, we complain at each other. But in order to enjoy the beautiful union of these and our devices, tenderness, and ideals, we must learn to stand up to the pain of readjustment and avoid our innate tenderness and to fly away from the hard work of making things work. The next time you think it is easier to fly away from the person you are involved in with, remember that understanding only comes when you stand under a real desire to know, to love, and to come prominent them, embracing the unique qualities of who they are. Learn to fight for love relationship. Even the best relationship requires negotiation, deliberation, and a lot of work to get off the ground. The resolution central around this ideal is simple. We need to know where to fight and when to take flight and move on. But there is no magic formula that can apply to anyone every time. Some applications come to mind. As I close this chapter, I want to give you some tips that will help you understand when to fight for a relationship, when to take flight from it, and when to just get off the plane and take the bus. When it's about money, money can store up a whole bunch of other issues, but generally, how to manage money and how to manage it within a marriage relationship depends on the set of skills like development and amount of discipline excuses. One of you may be fundamentally minding than the other. One you may be prone to spread frequently without considering the consequences. Without going into the whole financial seminar here, my best my best advice is to work within the boundaries of your reality together. In other words, consider how much debt you have, how much income, and how much you want to or need to save. Work together to make joint decisions that affect both of you. Allow some disgregators income, even if it's only a few dollars a month. Then you then you each get to spend however you wish. Find a way to exercise financial responsibility as well as financial freedom. When it's about time, if you're not spending enough time together, then one of you is missing the other. Ideally, you both want to spend more time together, but if one of you holds this complaint, then take it as a complaint. Then that they still enjoy your company. If low retaliation, low relation or conflicts revolves around time, then schedule sometime others on each other's calendar that will be strictly low time alone together. No kids, no jobs, no Blackberry, no cell, no instructors. Period. The old saying about the quality of the being more important than the equal quantity holds true. But if you're not spending enough hours together, then it will impair the quality. Rings about jealousy. Obviously, there's a limit. There's a limit to what is saying and with toleration. And I am not taking a and I am not talking about possibilities, talk, psychopaths, prostitutes, psychopaths who won't allow you to glance at the wheel without accusing you of cheating. But generally, when there's jealousy in a relationship, it's an indication of insecurity and power. You may need to have a frank discussion about your commitments to each other. Talk through those little habits and milestones that you sponsor enterprises as flourishers communicate and do not allow to judging to grow into bitterness, distrust, and disgust. Brent take flight from low relationship. Again, I am not saying you should stay over when he isn't into you. I am not suggesting that you fall in love alone. I I am most sincerely not saying that you stay in a relationship where you are abused, disrespected, or mistreated. Here are some considerations for deciding when not to fight for a relationship. When it's about se- when it's about safety. Anytime that you do not feel safe physically or emotionally in a relationship, then you should take flight. Domestic abuse cuts across all demographics, rich and poor, black and white, Baptist and Buddhist, and should never be tolerated. In most cases, there will be warning signs, even the threat of physical violence, which produces its own emotional bruises, or physical interaction bordering on abuse, pushing, shoving, grabbing. You must realize that no relationship should cost you your safety. The essence of love is about giving to each other, providing a secure place where the two of you can grow together and complementing to serve each other. It's not about angel or any kind. Wins about sanity. Now this one gets tricky because we each have different holes of what we think of it as crazy. One man's crazy is another man's true love. However, you should take flight from a relationship when there are consistent physicality, gameplay, manipular, and control issues. Consider the little things that only another-in-law lose slightly when you first start seeing each other, because over time they will grow larger and larger. The occasional critical comments often snowballs into avalanches of insulated critical feedback on every aspect of your life. Think about what you can live with and what is compatible with your personality. It's okay to come from completely different varying points. You can be direct opposites as long as you communicate constructively. When the exchange of feelings and ideas become a string of a pool, then you need an uplift. Then you need an uplift out of the water. Worries about survival. Some personal issues, particularly addictions, are so large and that it feels like the relationship never had a chance to get off the ground. I'm not saying that just because someone's addicted or has a terminal disease that you should take flight, but you must consider what you are willing to tolerate for the sake of the relationship. To be honest with yourself, you are not a martyr. If you know that you cannot tolerate his alcoholism because you grew up with it in your household, then you may need to leave if he's not committed to getting help. If your spouse is a caller loud, then it may be difficult for you to ever trust her. If your spouse is not willing to share the partnering and providing, then you must think twice before thinking that you alone can create a relationship. These are just a few general pieces of advice based on my experience. Please do not assure that they can be disciplinary in a one-size-fits-all methodology. Only you can know what you must do to have a happy relationship. The tragedy for me is that some may know what they should do, but feel the uncertainty of being alone, or, on the other extreme, breaking their heart again. If you are to be the person you want to be, the one you'll fight with intentionally, then you must know when to fight, when to take flight, and when to pause before you do. That's the end of this book on chapter 18. Tomorrow, we begin our final chapter on this book called Before You Gamble. This is the book called TDJs Before You Do. Until then, I'm Joseph Crudup. I will see you tomorrow on chapter 19.